This past week, you had Joe Biden telling a room full of donors off camera, off mic, this was not recorded, but it leaked to the press, that he told a room full of Democratic donors that we're closer now to nuclear Armageddon than we have been at any point since the Cuban Missile Crisis. Great record to run on.
And then he recreated the Cuban Pete scene from The Mask, which really blew their minds. Nobody saw that coming. I mean, they were like, the nuclear part is crazy, but who knew he could dance like that?
Right, exactly, yeah. I mean, that's something you want to brag about. That's really a feather in your cap as the leader of the free world, that we're closer to nuclear Armageddon than we have been at any point in, 50-something years. Well done, sir. Well done. Now, his predecessor had a few things to say about the Ukraine war at a rally in Nevada. I believe this was either last night or the night before. President Donald Trump was rallying supporters of Adam Laxalt, who is a Nevada Senate candidate. And the topic of Ukraine came up in his monologue, and he advocated for peace talks between Russia and Ukraine. So let's hear from the unhinged, insane, danger to the free world, Donald Trump.
We must demand the immediate negotiation of a peaceful end to the war in Ukraine, or we will end up in World War III, and there will be nothing left of our planet, all because stupid people didn't have a clue. They didn't have a clue. They really don't understand. I rebuilt our military. I rebuilt our nuclear power. They don't understand what they're dealing with, the power of nuclear.
They have no idea the power of nuclear.
You cut it off right at the best part. War. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Say it again.
They all started toking up in the audience. The tie-dye came out. Actually, he had the Grateful Dead come on stage right after that.
I mean, one thing you got to give him, that went better than Woodstock 99.
And that's true. That's true. Not a high bar, but he certainly cleared that bar.
Cleared it. Yeah, it's incredible that Donald Trump, the arch conservative of his era, such as he is, at least that's how he's perceived, he's the peacenik. He's the peacenik. This is why I keep saying I don't know what right and left mean anymore. Even the progressives, they're not saying boo about possible nuclear Armageddon. Nothing. So where's AOC? Where is she? Where is Ilhan Omar? Where are all these people? Where's Tlaib?
Yeah, is this not a major issue? This is not just one issue among many. This seems like a pretty important issue. It seems like something you'd want to chime in on. And when you talk about Donald Trump as the peacenik, he is the de facto peacenik. Whether he is ideologically committed to peace, obviously we were joking, Trump himself is not a hippie, he's not a pacifist by any means, but he understands instinctively and puts that instinct into practice when he comes to just the very natural human conclusion that war is not good for anybody. Because war is not good for anybody except the defense contractors, right? And so what sense does it make to entangle us in this war? From a nationalist perspective, he thinks this is madness. This is nonsense. And what he said there about, you're not going to have life on this planet. You're going to have nuclear winter. I mean, this is not a joke. This is not a game here. I mean, it's just extraordinary. Just absolutely extraordinary that he's out there making these points and none of the so-called left are out there making these points. That's what you need. What you need now are peace talks. Right. And when you talk about how Donald Trump is the peacenik, I've said this a million times, and we did a whole episode actually on this before we got a bigger audience. So I'm going to repeat some points that I made way back when. So for our longtime listeners, please bear with me. You may want to go check on the Mets score for 5 minutes and come back. You might have heard some of this in prior episodes. But if we look at the timeline here, 2008, George W. Bush urges Ukraine to join NATO. 2010, Ukraine is taken over, perhaps. A pro-Putin leader is installed in 2010, so the momentum obviously stops on that. In 2014, that government is overthrown, supposedly not with help from the West or with the U.S., but obviously there were leaked phone calls between Western interests, U.S. interests, and the emerging post-Maidan Ukrainian government as to how to structure a post-revolutionary government. And when those leaks happened, we did the same thing that we did, and by we, I mean the Obama White House, the U.S. leadership. We said that this was a Russian hack and the Russians leaked the information. We made all of these excuses, except we did not deny the validity of the recordings themselves. So we were caught.
Right.
As meddling.
You would think the media would be
affairs.
Interested in that.
Right. No,
in explaining how this happened.
Same thing when the DNC leaks happened in 2016.
I will wager to you the vast majority of people who primarily get their news through the Times, through Washington Post, don't even know about those tapes.
Right. Exactly. They don't know about those tapes. No, that was totally buried. It was a story, and then it was no longer.
Yeah. If you told them that, they'd call you a conspiracy theorist.
Exactly. 2016, during that campaign, obviously, we all know how that turned out, right? Trump is a Putin puppet. That was a major point of the campaign against Trump, is that he is in the pocket of Vladimir Putin. Trump then wins. And I'm going to play this piece of tape again because this is critical to understanding how we got here. Trump wins on November 9th, 2016, whatever it was, 2:37 a.m. He is declared the president-elect. Then there is a lame duck period where Obama is still in the White House, but Trump is incoming. On New Year's Eve, 2016 into 2017, during this lame duck period where Trump is going to take office in 3 weeks, John McCain, Amy Klobuchar, and Lindsey Graham went to a combat outpost in Ukraine, and here's what they said. Now, it's very important. Remember when this happened. This happened post-election of Donald Trump, but pre-inauguration of Donald Trump. All right? Now, let's hear what these guys have to say.
Your fight is our fight.
Ваша боротьба – це наша боротьба.
2017 will be the year of offense.
2017 рік буде ріком нападу.
All of us will go back to Washington and we will push the case against Russia.
Ми всі повернемося до Вашингтону і ми будемо відстоювати санкції проти Росії.
Enough of a Russian aggression.
Досить вже російської агресії.
It is time for them to pay a heavier price.
Час вже, щоб вони заплатили важчу ціну.
I believe you will win. I am convinced you will win, and we will do everything we can to provide you with what you need to win.
Now, remember what Lindsey Graham there said. He said 2017 will be a year of offense. We are going to go back to Washington and make the case against Russia. Well, make the case against Russia to who? Not to Barack Obama. He's got 3 weeks left in office. They were going to make the case against Russia to Donald Trump, except they never really could make the case to Donald Trump that this war is necessary, that a confrontation on this scale with Russia was necessary. They could never convince him to go along with it, which is why, more than anything else, the media hated Donald Trump, the Lincoln Project, GOPers hated Trump, and the, neocon hawkish Democrats hated Trump. This is why, more than anything else, they hated Trump. The system will allow for a lot. It will not allow you to stall the war machine. The war machine must keep cranking no matter what. And it is very obvious from the timeline I just laid out, especially including that clip right there, that just about everyone in Washington, D.C. wanted a confrontation with Russia on this scale, except for Donald Trump. And oddly enough, the only one other man who was able to stop it, was Barack Obama, who said that Ukraine will always be more important to Russia than it is to the U.S., and that was his rationale for not spilling blood over this.
Credit is due.
Right. He did, but he still pushed it up to that point. He wasn't willing to take it to that point, which, like I said, like you just said, credit where credit is due, fine. But oddly enough, Trump and Obama seem to be the only two people in that town who did not want something like this to happen. And Trump took it even further, and he took it to this sort of, because there were all these sort of like rhetorical embraces, and because he and Putin are both these sort of like nationalist strongmen, it was very easy to lump them as, cut from the same style of leadership and things like that, which, all right, I mean, fair enough. Fair enough. But the constant assault on Donald Trump from the second he stepped foot in that office to even now is all about the fact that he did not give the bipartisan establishment the war that they wanted. I don't see how you can really come to any other conclusion when you consider the timeline and look at footage like that.
Yeah, and if you remember, at one point, pretty early in his presidency, I remember Trump saying, "Wouldn't it be a good thing if we had a good relationship with Russia?" Right. And they all, see, they have a P-tape. See, he's controlled by Russia, which was just crazy. It was so clear, and this is what the people who really got sucked into Russiagate and that media bubble will never really understand. Donald Trump substantively was certainly no worse than George Bush. Quite a bit better on the substance. In terms of style, okay, I just saw this. This is kind of a preview of my latest TikTok rant, which I'm having technical difficulties with. Okay, so we know the women on The View are the stupidest people on earth and are, about as qualified to judge politics as I am to play for the Mets. So Sunny Hostin was talking about Ron DeSantis, and she pivots to how racist Trump is. Okay, all right. So what about people that you would welcome on your show and would never say anything like that about? What about your current president, who said that we have to not desegregate schools because he doesn't want his children and your children growing up in a racial jungle, who mass incarcerated 2 generations of people of color with his crime bill? What about Bill Clinton, who announced his candidacy for president at the birthplace of the KKK with a phalanx of black prisoners behind him, and just in case anyone missed the message, with Cooter from the Dukes of Hazzard literally standing to his right? How about Hillary Clinton, who said in 2008, "I am the candidate of hardworking people, white people"? I am not. That is an exact quote. You can look it up if you've never heard it.
Should hardworking Americans, white Americans.
White Americans.
The exact quote.
White Americans. That's the exact quote, you geek. Yes.
Just want to know, because people are going to Google it and they're going to think you're lying.
You're right.
Because it's going to be Americans and not people. Right.
Especially our friend on the comments who's stalking us.
Oh, yeah, right. Exactly.
That guy's going to wind up. He's going to wind up at our house.
Got to cross your T's and dot your I's for this crowd.
Fucking psycho. Yeah, so what about all those people? Okay, so Donald Trump's a racist. Okay, fine. But what about all the people you embrace who actually there's more public record evidence that they are racists, and their racism has manifested in policy? In terms of Donald Trump, this racism manifested in being the first president to undo some of the insane sentencing guidelines that the current president laid out in his crime bill. He was the first president to give permanent funding to historically black colleges and universities. I'm not saying Donald Trump was a great president. I'm not even saying he's not a racist. As a guy from Queens, I can smell that guy. He sounds exactly like a guy from a corner bar where I grew up. And I grew up about 3 miles away from where Donald Trump grew up. Not on the rich side of town, but pretty close to where he grew up. So I'm not even saying that's not true. But what I'm saying is nobody takes you fucking people seriously when you say these things about Donald Trump, because it so obviously only applies to your political enemies. And even when the people on your side are actually worse than someone like Donald Trump, you won't say anything about it. You'll cover it up. Look what they did to Tara Reid. Right in the middle. How do you expect people to take you seriously when you've been telling everyone for decades you cannot shame women? You have to take them seriously when they make these accusations. And as soon as somebody made an accusation that was going to create a lot of problems for your anointed one, the nuts and sluts defense came right out of the filing cabinet. right? All of a sudden, they're questioning her psychology. They're questioning her sanity. They're questioning her credibility. All the old tactics. They all came right out. So this is why nobody takes the liberals, and particularly the elite liberals, seriously when they say these things about Donald Trump, because a lot of the things you say about Donald Trump can not only be said about your own people, a lot of your own people are actually worse than Donald Trump, and you'll never say anything about that. So why should we take you seriously on this, particularly when Donald Trump is seemingly the only one out there saying, yeah, World War III, maybe not a good idea. Maybe we don't want to do that.
Please clap.